it means they can share the credit for what they come up with.
and share the goal in the first
Mm.
place. I mean,
Yeah.
they understand that the goal that both of them are working on is the same. I
Mm.
mean, they're working on the same goal. They're just doing it differently. Then they could do with some help with each
Mm.
other. And so they actually realize that I'm not alone here in this problem.
Mm.
I share not only the good times but also the tough times with one another. So it's really
Mm.
really culture building. It's a different kind of culture altogether.
Yeah. So, Ruby, I think this also seems to imply that organizations that are mature enough to use this system of leadership have also embraced letting people fail forward. In other words, that they shouldn't feel afraid to try, to innovate, to experiment as ways of growing, learning, and moving the organization forward.
We're not saying that there won't be mistakes anymore, right?
Mm.
And
Right.
that everything will be successful.
Mm.
But what we're saying is that the tough work will be shared.
Mm.
The good times will be shared as much as the tough work. And it's the tough times that we need to be together,
Mm.
uh, especially now. Stressful times are the times that people get into conflicts and all that. But and then ultimately they realize that it is during stressful times that they need to be in their best selves.
Mm.
Not.
Good day. Welcome to The Leader's Edge. And today is Season 12, Episode 6, with our guest, Ruby Palma, who will be talking about coaching teams towards higher performance. Now, Ruby is somebody who is the principal partner at Leadership in Motion Philippines. She was also 2014 to 2015 president of International Coaching Federation Philippine chapter. And she was formerly the APAC Regional L&D and HR Director at AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals. So, why don't we all give a virtual welcome to our honored guest, Ruby Palma. Ruby?
Thank you, Dino, for this invitation. And I'd like also to greet our audience and thank them for their time today. I'm sure there are a lot of leaders from HR or operations in the room today or will be listening here, entrepreneurs or business owners, and simply anyone who thirsts to learn. So in addition to just what you said, Dino, after my corporate stint, I spent the past decade dedicating to coaching leaders and teams. I found a new calling in coaching. And
Mm.
one of the latest books my organization and my partner in the US, Leadership in Motion, came out with is a book on a shared leadership disciplines, a new way to lead and coach, as well as action reflection learning. So, with the two combined, I hope to be able to share with everyone today how some thoughts and ideas in our experience to empower leaders and teams.
Oh, you know what, Ruby? I'm so glad that you brought that up because one of the topmost questions people have, especially managers, is they kind of wonder what prevents teams from higher performance.
Most leaders desire a high performing team for good reasons.
Mm.
Would you agree?
Yes, they do.
And at the top of the list, I mean, it helps the leader, first of all,
Mm.
to deliver expected goals and commitments. And at the same time, it gives him the capacity for value creation in other aspects of business, organizational, and even personal level. But almost every leader also knows the challenges of developing his or her team to be higher
Mm.
performing. This means that the team is able to deliver more than what they're currently capable of doing on a consistent basis. Even
Mm.
though there are a lot of success stories, I'm sure that people in the room would have theirs, majority of leaders face difficulties when they try to raise the bar. So
Mm.
more. And some of the reasons are because they lack knowing. Some leaders simply do not understand that sharing leadership is possible, much less
Mm.
desirable. And they may have heard of the words, but thought that no, maybe it's just a pie in the sky.
Mm.
Another reason is they lack the ability. Leaders may not have the right mindset. It requires a different kind of mindset in every situation, knowledge and processes to develop their teams to be higher performing, and
Mm.
requires some toolkits for them. Maybe their toolkits could be limited at this point. And the last one, which I think is important but not very easy, is the lack of will. Many leaders may lack the will or motivation. Um, I don't know if you'll agree with me, Dino, but if they're just doing what they're doing, that's good enough. Delivering their goals and work commitment is more important than team development.
Mm.
Sometimes also they might think, why rock the boat? Because they're, the current ways are safer, even though
Mm.
they're facing challenges with their existing way of leadership.
Mm.
Then they've tried it before, but it didn't work. They simply
Mm.
give up. So these are some of the mindsets, that leaders bring with them in their leadership that prevents them from, motivating teams to focus on high performance. And
Mm.
I've had clients that tell me my boss is happy with me the way I am.
Mm.
So there's no drive or expectation for high performance from their bosses.
Mm.
Then
Mm.
the last one, which I think is applicable to many, is it's not easy to ask for help. So many
Mm.
leaders don't want to ask for help.
Resonance to what you're sharing with me came in an assignment that I had a month or so ago when I was invited to act as an external panelist in looking for a regional manager for a
Mm-hmm.
multinational company. So there were several of us, and we listened to several candidates enter the room to be auditioned, as it were. And it one of the important factors that that multinational was looking from the winning candidate was this capacity to empower people. In other words, not to behave as though he or she were the last word in good ideas or ability. So you do have a point there. I'd like to ask you, Ruby, given that reality, about how teams aren't able to go to higher performance, are there any shifts happening in the landscape that is, causing that to happen?
Oh, absolutely. And in our experience, we can name a few of them. The changes in the workplace today uh, can already tell us that employees want more say and control. A shift that has been going on for, I think this has been going on for the last 10 years or so.
Mm.
It's driven by the coming of age of a new generation of leaders at the workplace. And they have different expectations from their leaders at the workplace.
Mm.
They want to influence organizational change, and they want to move away from top down seniority based hierarchy.
Right.
And organizations are adapting to becoming more open and people focused. The pace, therefore, of the change depends on how, leadership or the ship is managed.
Mm.
And we were talking earlier, Dino, of technological transformation, right?
Yeah.
Has brought about huge shifts caused by technical transformation, commonly known now as the Industrial Revolution 4.0.
Mm.
And it has been going on for the last, I think, 10 years or a decade.
Mm.
And the world has witnessed breakthroughs in the fields of robotics, artificial intelligence. We were just talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
to one my artificial intelligence coach myself, and her name is Amy.
Mm.
Amy is an appropriate name, right? I was
Yeah.
actually sharing with her an actual career challenge, and I was just my mind was blown away when she could also read my emotions.
Mm.
So it's wonderful. I mean, even as we speak, as we I coach people, emotions or feelings are one of the most difficult aspects to really understand. So if they're able to do this, I'm sure it will bring about huge shifts in the way work is done. And the
Mm.
third one is we all are part of it. We've experienced it. The biggest shift is the result of COVID-19.
Oh yeah.
The world today was blindsided by the scale, breadth, and the speed in which the virus spread throughout the world. And one of the most
Mm.
visible outcomes of this global pandemic was the acceleration of, the other two shifts earlier that I mentioned, and more split in terms of the teams.
Mm.
Also, there are a lot of teams that probably have now realized, hey, I can work from home. Yeah. But then the organization now would like for them to come back and work here. So we practically have teams that are divided. Others may be at home or maybe at work. So we need to understand how this hybrid way of working, can be managed.
I get what you're saying, but it all of those also seems to imply that there needs to be a new way of leading because of this changing landscape. And I know so many people are holding tight to the old ways and to the old mindset, and that's what's probably keeping them from moving forward. So, for you, what would be a new way of leading, specifically because of how the world has changed?
So as they say, in change brings with it, or change brings with it transitions, right?
Mm.
Internal, psychological, emotional impact to people. And what leaders really need to know is that the old ways may not work anymore. A
Mm.
new leading is needed in a changing landscape. And here are some thoughts that we have. The third and the biggest shift, which was COVID-19, brought about split teams, increased digital adoption, and others that we probably don't understand yet.
Mm.
We need to be able to believe in our employees in a different way.
Mm.
So the mindset that we were talking about earlier, that leaders bring with them, that drive the way they lead today, must change.
Mm.
Leaders, first of all, must now believe that their employees are able to work with passion, meaning, and purpose. Um, the old way, which is the hierarchical way,
Mm.
has its weaknesses. Now, according to one study, I think it was the Gallup study in 2017, only 15% of the workplace is engaged. So what's happening to the 85%?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, there must be a different way by which we engage people, and more so in a changed environment that we have today. Leaders,
Mm.
as I was sharing earlier, need to bring with them a mindset that people now have ample opportunities to apply their strengths, talents, and expertise, that people need to feel valued, cared for, and supported,
Mm.
and to have more say and control of their work, time, and energy. And
Okay.
so, yeah, go
Yeah. So,
ahead.
what you're sharing seems to imply shared leadership. But what does that really look like?
So the leader's priority is to create an environment that brings out the best in their employees. And to do this,
Mm-mm.
they must first take the first step.
Okay.
They must learn how to share more of their influence, power, and ownership. We call that IPO, you know, because the old hierarchical top down kind of leadership, seems to believe that there's just a belief in one person knowing what to do, and so the
Mm.
the answers will have to come from the leader. They have to be the more knowledgeable and credible to answer and to have the
Mm.
solutions. And so if leaders learn how to share their IPO, influence, power, and ownership, they have more influence and say on the leadership of the team, the work and decisions, and share that with their people, have more power in their jobs, empowering people with more authority and control, and increasing that sense of ownership of the team, including owning the team processes and outcomes. That is what shared leadership is about.
Mm. It's a good model, and I think that many people will clearly benefit from this. One of the things that I'm curious about is I'm sure not everybody has welcomed this. Some
Mhm.
are still overly controlling, or those who are so fearful of being blamed when things go wrong. So in that scenario, how can team coaching help leaders and teams learn and grow using what you call the ARL principles and shared leadership disciplines?
Okay, there's just a simple study here by Harvard Business Review in
Mm.
2019, and it says here that leaders spend 72% of their time in meetings.
Oh yeah, that's
You
true.
check? Yeah, everyone is probably on time, um, you know, um, meeting after meeting, and
Yeah.
during the pandemic, you'd hear people say, my meeting is back to back.
Mm.
So
Sometimes simultaneously even.
yes, I'm with multiple multiple meetings, and so they have multiple gadgets over here working with
Mm.
different audiences. So let's just take a look at a simple example of meetings. What does shared leadership look like in meetings?
Mm.
Well, in our experience, when teams are sharing leadership, everyone is probably on time and ready for team meetings, and notify the team manager and other
Mm.
team members in advance if they're not able to make it for whatever reason. And then they'd probably be able to care from each other, to care for each other and ask questions.
Mm.
Okay, so there are 5 disciplines of shared leadership that we'll probably experience in people in meetings. Okay, the discipline of connect,
Mm.
ensuring that people in teams are connected not only to the members of the team on a personal level, but to the professional level of each of the team members. So there are other dimensions by which we want to see connection happen. They're connected to the professional level, they're connected to the team goals, they're connected to the organization, because ultimately what they do impacts on the team culture, and there should be connected to the directions of the team. So all of
Mm.
this describe what connection can look like. I remember a time, Dino, when we held a webinar, a global webinar for leaders, and we asked them, so who among you deliberately or mindfully connect to your people?
Mm.
Guess what? In all those, I think there were 100 that activity, we saw raise hands, and we counted only 30%.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
small.
yeah, we were amazed. I mean, the simple thing of connection,
Mm.
not many people do that deliberately.
Mm.
The second discipline of sharing leadership is contracting.
Mm.
Okay. What is contracting? Contracting is the ability, I mean, many problems happen with a lack of contracting in organizations and teams, meaning to say sharing of expectations and making my expectation of each other explicit
Mm.
or voiced out and agreed upon so that you can commit to it. So, as we referred to connecting, which is the ability to be able to build relationships with people, contracting is the ability to commit to something
Ah.
that's explicit. Yeah. The third one is being able to collect. Do you imagine a leader who regularly asks people, and provides the environment for people to speak up and sees individual feelings, needs, offers requests, but also sees the collective picture. I mean, the
Mm.
collective picture is different from individuals, right? And
Yes.
the ability to collect data is important for a team leader to have because collecting is being curious, you know, trying to understand
Mm.
what the team really is, both physically and, in terms of the intangibles. So this is where I said feelings are important data for leaders to also understand.
So far we have three, no? So just to
Yeah, we have
to review,
five.
that's we started out with connect or
Connect,
connectedness, and then we followed with contract or the ability to create contracts, and then the third would be um
collect.
collect or being able to analyze data and
Yes.
understand their audiences. Do
Fourth
go
one
on. Yeah. Mhm.
is collaborate.
Okay.
It's all about working together. It combines the science of planning and the art of cooperation. Collaboration is the ability to enjoy the work. So teammates would say, "Thank God it's Monday. I get to work with," when the small team comes together with collaborative tools and processes coupled with a compelling dream, there's nothing that can keep them from bringing their dream to life,
Hmm.
right? As anthropologist Margaret Mead said once, never underestimate the power of a few to make a big difference. In fact,
Yeah.
it happens seldom, it seldom happens any other
Mm-mm.
way. And in our virtual reality, collaborating is to co create. I like
Mm.
the term co creating. And I always do that with teams. Meaning to say, when somebody asks me, "Ruby, can you help us with this or that?" Okay, I don't tell them what to do or what it is that they need. We need to co-create it together. So we explore questions, important
Mm.
questions of the team and the responses because, you know, we have to believe that the wisdom is within. And so they also
Mm.
probably have the answers within the team themselves. So it's really co-creation when we collaborate.
So that sounds really good because when we had other guests who talk about inclusivity, diversity, um, the one common thread that they were echoing, which is similar to what you're saying, is that uh, today it's no longer being one voice in the wilderness, but it has to be the willingness to hear all the different voices to get maximum cooperation.
Yes. If in the very beginning, if the leader knows how to share influence, power, and ownership, then he has to be able to provide a safe space for people to speak up, right? And when
Yes.
people are able to speak up, then they are able to express,
Mm.
they feel heard. And so it's a different picture altogether when people are able to contribute.
Mm.
It brings about motivation. Would you agree? I mean, I'd like to work in a team that values or might be interested to what I can contribute.
Definitely. It will avoid making anybody feel like the fifth wheel.
Which brings me to my last
Yeah, the fifth.
uh, shared leadership discipline.
Mm,
Of course, we'd like for people to feel cared for, supported, and for the leader to be able to provide a safe space, right?
mm,
But for growth to happen, for improvements to happen, we need to have leaders also challenge and promote that culture of being able to challenge each other.
mm,
Challenge is a discipline of questioning the status quo, push the envelope, and to be on the edge.
mm,
Without challenge, the team runs the risk of just becoming cozy and
mm,
comfortable. And team members will be challenging each other with questions, such as what's another way of saying this or looking at this perspective? What's
mm,
behind your thinking? How did you come to that conclusion? So
mm,
it's a combination of curiosity, but it's really exploring what else can be done about that. And it's a great way for a team to really grow. I just would like to share a recent experience I had with a team I was coaching, and the team leader was telling me that, he'd like to break down the silos, one, but at the same time, he'd like to be able to promote conversations in the team that are less violent. You know,
Oh, okay.
they they really shout at each other, and
Mm,
sometimes emotions are high, and so they get into fights or conflicts.
mm,
But when you challenge, it's really about presenting your perspective, even if you have a different perspective, by just saying so. I
mm.
heard you. I have a different way of looking at that situation. And you can have
Ah.
different perspectives, right?
Mm. So it's also a requirement. I can see from what you're saying, a certain level of maturity is required from people who assume leadership posts, because that implies the ability to choose words carefully, words that enable instead of antagonize the listener.
Yes, you're right. Words are important.
Mm.
And, sometimes language too, an ability
Mm.
to have that language. Not many leaders or people even have a language for emotions. So they
Mm.
don't even recognize it, much less express how they feel in a way
Mm.
that they could be understood. So, yes, maturity, but also words and the language are important.
Mm. So, Ruby, you know what you've been describing seems to me that it's been something that some people have been using pretty well, but others just aren't too skilled with using it. Because I noticed that, say, in manufacturing organizations where they call for a meeting, and thankfully, people who are invited have real purpose for being there, so they contribute. And I think they called them quality circles, where they use tools like root cause analysis and invite people to weigh in, and then challenge, as you said, the status quo, so that they can together look for a solution with the highest buy-in and optimal business results for the organization. So could we say that we are reinforcing um, this need, this fact, for people to be inclusive, be collaborative in the way that they lead?
Yes, definitely. Shared leadership is not new. I mean,
Mm,
it's been there, I think, as early as the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And even the circles, you mentioned about circles. In quality management, it's really about the ideas of people to come up with solutions, right?
mm,
So we're not saying that this is a a new concept, but the discipline has to be there for
mm,
it to be brought about again, given the the shifts in the landscape that we have.
Mm,
And sharing leadership is not about relinquishing accountability.
mm,
The leader remains accountable to the boss and the
mm,
board. And the difference is that the leader has members who share leadership.
mm,
So whereas circles, for instance, would was created during the quality management era,
mm,
right? For them to solve problems, for them to be able to find solutions to quality the problems. The difference here is that this is leadership. You
mm,
know, they can share leadership and the responsibility to manage the team and the organization, and the
mm,
leader's role is to ensure that there is strong alignment on the vision, that they're equipped with principles, processes, and now tools really. So if problem solving quality tools before worked for manufacturing organizations, there's processes, and shared leadership could be one of the new ways by which we can lead leaders to lead teams today.
mm.
And you were asking earlier, Dino, about team coaching.
Yeah.
So, team coaching is a modality, right,
Mm,
that
mm,
leaders can wear. And coaching fundamentally is a skill that busy leaders today want to add into their portfolio. And it's because of the impact and the value that coaching brings in the organization. Coaching recognizes the wisdom of the person, and it's defined as partnering in a creative and thought provoking process
mm,
so that the person, enhances or optimizes the fullest potential, both
mm,
personally and professionally. So, similar, when we bring that to a team environment, that's what team coaching can do,
mm.
as opposed to consulting, teaching, what other modalities, counseling, maybe,
Yeah.
and um, facilitating, team building. So there
Mm,
are many developmental uh, modalities that fall under the team development umbrella, right?
mm,
And
mm,
team coaching is the least directive, meaning to say it does not require for the leader to be the expert
mm,
and will tell people what to do, but it's the least directive because here it really brings ownership to the team
mm.
members
You know,
rather than,
I
yeah,
like what you're sharing, Ruby. Sorry for the interruption. I like what you're sharing because one truth which we are facing now is that the world is no longer the same. We've been calling it the new normal, but to me it feels more like the now normal because
yeah,
it's no longer new, but it's now the normal. And especially when you look at quotas that some sales teams have to reach, and
mm,
they have difficulty because of supply chain issues. So circumstances are totally different now. So when they approach planning, leaders will oftentimes help to calm down the anxiety and the stress of his teammates by collaborating or asking for ideas from them so that they can feel like they're less anxious and more in control of how they will implement a solution to a problem that currently seems unsolvable. So I think there's wisdom in the approach that you're describing because it takes a lot of the fear away from becoming a higher performing team. I'm so glad that we had this chance to have this discussion. Maybe more people hopefully will be inspired to try out what you're sharing.
yeah. You know
Uh,
what? The metaphor that I would use is the gadget.
oh,
Yeah. What happens if you're not connected?
yeah.
We ran out of batteries, right? We could go
Mm-mm.
on for a bit, but ultimately we run out of batteries. It's important that we are
Mm.
connected on a
Eh,
day-to-day
You're
basis.
absolutely right because I almost panicked when I thought I misplaced my phone. versus panicking because I thought I misplaced my car keys. Somehow the phone was
Need
more
your phone,
important.
ah.
Yeah,
You need
because
your
of connectedness. And then the second one was contract, the willingness to come to agreements that both parties have agreed to. And then
which
the
doesn't happen all
third,
the time, right?
yeah, totoo. And then the
Um,
third was, what was that again?
collect.
Collect, to gather the emotion, the data about how people are feeling, the emotions, or the, let's call it euphoric temperature of the team. Mm,
Amongst other data that are available, right?
yeah.
Because we only see, observe, but we don't feel. So all of
Mm,
these collecting of information coming from everybody is important.
mm. And then the fourth was collaborate, uh,
Collaborate.
to let people feel that they have their words have equal weight, and to carefully choose what we say, or the language that we use, to maximize harmony instead of discord within a
And
team. Mm.
to co-create.
Ah,
So
yes.
here, collaborate probably is a discipline that can, you know, um, what we call move silos to a more collaborative culture, right?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
you know what happens in a siloed environment? People are just concerned about their deliverables,
Mm.
their goals,
Mm.
what they do without minding the others. So when there are problems outside of their own team function or responsibility, they aren't able to contribute,
Mm.
and vice versa.
Mm.
But collaboration is a discipline and a set of toolkits and processes that leaders should be able to deliberately have and apply.
Mm. I should think that more people should be doing that, because when we fall into territorial imperatives and this desire to somehow feel like you're still in charge of your little silo, that slows things up immensely. But
Yes.
things go faster when people don't have that mindset, when they think of their silos not as closed containers, but as vessels where ideas can flow in and out of. And that way, things get done faster.
Yes, I agree. And it's a cliche, but really, two heads, three heads are better than one in this case.
Mm,
And when you see a problem only in the lens that you have, but miss out on how others view that, then there's a lot
mm-mm,
that you're really missing in terms of the big picture. So collaboration is really about. I remember a process I shared with the team leader and the team members, because a team entity is composed of a leader and a team and
mm,
members, right? It's just a simple walk and talk, you
mm,
know, with every member for 5 minutes.
mm,
Experience that. And then at
mm,
the end of that exercise, we took about an hour or so
mm,
for a team of 10 members. 5 minutes. And they said, "Oh my God, I didn't realize it was this way."
mm,
And I didn't realize that he needed me in that
mm,
manner. And in fact, there was one example of a story of a real experience of two male controllers when they did the walk and talk and they were together. And by the way, for 2 years, they were estranged. They were not talking to each
oh, good grief.
other. That 5 minute conversation, they asked each other, "So, would you remember or do you remember why we're not talking to each other?"
Mm,
And either of them didn't remember anymore what happened.
mm,
But that 5 minutes brought them together again. And so they were able to, they're not, people would tell us that they're seen having coffee together after that. So collaboration
yeah.
is really about coming together and just understanding each other. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see the application for that instantly. Organizations where leaders or controllers traditionally have clashed. For example, manufacturing and quality control, they always do.
Mhm.
Or for banks,
Finance and
yeah, audit and the sales department, for
audit always
example.
has.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be, because the overall picture is risk management, and how do we uh, prevent risk, or create risk, and that's by the willingness to talk over how to avoid them in the first place, so maganda yung, I like what you're saying, because with the fifth C, which is co-create, it means they can share the credit for what they come up with.
and share the goal in the first
Mm.
place. I mean,
Yeah.
they understand that the goal that both of them are working on is the same. I
Mm.
mean, they're working on the same goal. They just doing it differently. Then they could do with some help with each
Mm.
other. And so they actually realize that I'm not alone here in this problem.
Mm.
I share not only the good times but also the tough times with one another. So it's really
Mm.
really culture building. It's a different kind of culture altogether.
Yeah. So, Ruby, I think this also seems to imply that organizations that are mature enough to use this system of leadership have also embraced letting people fail forward. In other words, that they shouldn't feel afraid to try, to innovate, to experiment, as ways of growing, learning, and moving the organization forward.
We're not saying that there won't be mistakes anymore, right?
Mm.
And
Right.
that everything will be successful.
Mm.
But what we're saying is that the tough work will be shared.
Mm.
The good times will be shared as much as the tough work. And it's the tough times that we need to be together,
Mm.
uh, especially now. Stressful times are the times that people get into conflicts and all that. But and then ultimately they realize that it is during stressful times that they need to be in their best selves.
Mm.
Not, yeah.
True, true.
So there are tools, processes that leaders uh, can put in
Mm.
place to be able to make this happen.
So, Ruby, given that this is something that leaders must learn to practice, and practice consistently, is there a forum, is there a venue that you could suggest to our viewers that they could uh, go search, or maybe an activity that you have upcoming you'd like to mention here, so that they can learn more about it?
Yes, we were talking about action, reflection, learning earlier, Dino, right? And it's actually the first set of principles that, as an organization, leadership in motion is anchored on.
Mm.
This works on the belief that you know executive education learn best. Executives, leaders learn best when real life situations are put into the learning avenue. You
Mm.
know, textbooks, case studies, is different from really working on actual action learning activities and
Mm.
situations. And so it brought about the coming up of 10 learning principles that made learning happen. And it's well researched, that makes learning happen and last in organizations. So how is it, what do you understand about learning? So there are 10 learning principles that we put in place,
Mm.
and the learning principles plus the discipline of shared leadership we put together in a team coaching certificate course, which
Mm.
is running globally. So we're now holding our 26th cohort, and in the Philippines we will be having our 29th cohort, of team shared leadership, team coach certification. So for leaders, people who are interested to be aspiring coaches, or for coaches who are already wanting to expand their impact to teams, not only one-on-one coaching, but also team coaching. we have a program that's running in June this year.
Hmm.
So it will certify shared leadership team coaches and will also enable people who'd like to grow into their professional coaching levels, professional coaching, master coaching levels in
Mm.
the International Coach Federation.
So I assume, Ruby, that this is something that is being promoted heavily even now. And if yes, how do people reach you? Are you on LinkedIn,
Yes, we have a Facebook page.
Facebook?
We will be
Yes.
also promoting in LinkedIn. We also have a LinkedIn page, Leadership
Okay.
in Asia.
Mm. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, we just heard from Ruby Palma, and we're really privileged to have had her or today for our session. And if you enjoyed learning from her, as I did, then do please click on like, share, and subscribe. And stand by because coming up in episode 7 is none other than one of our show favorites, Boogie Boy Don, who will be talking about equip, enable, and empower. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as ever, learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas. Good day. Thank you so much, Ruby.
Thank you very much, Dino. It's been a pleasure.